Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you like this episode, please remember to hit the like button and leave a comment or two, then subscribe and click on the bell to receive notifications of whenever we release new videos. Also, please remember to share them to your social media. Welcome back to Scary Bear Attacks. Today's episode takes us back to a familiar place, Meeteetse, Wyoming. We visited Meeteetse in a prior episode regarding Philip Henry Vedder's grizzly bear attack. Vedder's episode is linked to in the video article below for your review. Let's hope this episode turns out with a better ending than Vedder's did. Both episodes took place in the same drainage, the Greybull River Drainage. About 20 miles east of Meeteetse and a few more miles south of Fenton, a hard-scrabble landscape of mountainous barren folds sits at a little over 5,000 feet in elevation. It is the kind of territory straight out of an old western cowboy movie. Along sheltered draws, ponderosa and lodgepole pine mix with Douglas fir and Engelmann spruce, providing shelter over numerous elder species and scattered berry bushes. Most of the hills here are covered in sagebrush and prairie grasses, giving an open and expansive view. This area gets less than 9 inches of rainfall each year, which means the summer months are hot and dry as a bone, and winters are bitterly cold and snowy. Salmon no longer run up the Greybull, so grizzlies here have to rely on other sources of forage to supplement their diet. The world's largest herd of elk and antelope stretch across the prairie, as moose and mule deer peek from brush and grass along the river's banks. North American bison still roam freely here, though their numbers are much smaller than in previous centuries. In the fall, grizzlies can be seen scouring the hillside in a last-ditch effort to find needed calories for hibernation. They get desperate and defensive at this time of year, which makes them more responsive to threats or the possibility of calories. On Thursday, October 3rd, 2024, Vince Kalkowski, a successful chiropractor from Cody, and his 23-year-old son Garrett were enjoying their annual elk hunting trip in the Greybull Drainage. The father and son had shared many fond memories over the decades of hunting together, like the time Garrett killed his first bull elk with his .270 at the age of 12. As you might expect, hunting for so many years in prime grizzly habitat had led to numerous encounters with the massive bears, but nothing would come close to what the hunters would experience today. While they hiked and throughout the hunting trip, Vince had tried to convince Garrett not to carry his pistol with a round in the chamber. Citing the possibility of an accidental discharge, he was concerned that his son was risking his own as well as other hunters' safety. But Garrett was a grown man, and stubbornly declared he was going to carry his pistol locked and loaded, so that it was ready when he needed it, should he need it. Along with the Kalkowskis were 5 close family friends. Garrett was the first hunter in the party to find success by killing a bull elk a few days prior. On the morning of October 3rd, all 7 hunting party members headed up the drainage by mule pack train. Vince's hunting buddy had brought along his daughter, and she was the next member of the hunting party to find success. She brought down a second bull elk. Given her young age, her father and a few other members of the party stayed with her to help pack out her bull, while Vince and Garrett continued up the drainage in hopes of filling Vince's tag also. Over the previous days of the hunting trip, the hunters had wandered across several different grizzly tracks, but had yet to see one. After a brief trip up the ridge, they observed a bull elk hiding out in the tree line several hundred yards above them. The hunters made their way up the ridge to a point where each side dropped off steeply, and dense timber limited their vision. Only 15 yards from the bull, the undergrowth was so dense that the hunters couldn't get a good visual for a shot. As they struggled to get into shooting position, the bull heard them, or caught their scent on the breeze. It broke from cover and disappeared further up the hill before the hunters could get off a shot. Now is a great time to discuss the defensive weaponry the Kalkowskis had brought with them on their hunt. Garrett had filled his tag, so he carried only his 10mm Glock pistol. His father carried his high-powered hunting rifle and a pistol on his hip. I could find no source indicating that either man carried bear spray on this hunting trip. Now immersed in the dense timber, the hunters heard a twig snap behind them, in the opposite direction in which the bull had disappeared. They quietly glanced in the direction of the snap and hoped it was a different bull elk. They waited for a moment as Garrett pulled his cell phone from his pocket and filmed the beautiful view from the bluff. Garrett was standing on a small rise several yards away from Vince. The young man was panning his camera across the view when both hunters heard timber popping very near their location. As soon as Garrett heard the noise, he reached for his pistol. Fortunately, he had the forethought of chambering around in it before the hunters had made their way up the ridge, and now his weapon was ready to fire. Within a few seconds, the Kalkowski's worst-case scenario began to unfold in a surreal scene. An enormous grizzly bear had broken from cover only a few yards from Garrett, upwind from the hunters. Time slowed down as Vince took in the information in greater detail and speed than he had ever before. His mind envisioned the bear pouncing on Garrett, and he knew he would have to be ready to shoot it. That is when Garrett did something surprising and impressive to his father. Vince's terrifying visions were snapped back to reality with rapid and repeated rounds fired from Garrett's pistol. The angry bear absorbed 4 rounds from Garrett's pistol before spilling over and landing on a log 5 yards from the hunter. Vince knew the bear could easily pop back up and barked out orders for his son to continue shooting the bear. Following his father's direction, Garrett emptied a 15-round magazine in the bear's direction. As Garrett worked to reload his pistol, the grizzly stood back to his feet and found the energy to stumble over the log and into the dense undergrowth. Now having no idea where the grizzly had gone, the father and son searched the timber with their eyes as they heard the heavy breathing of the bear. They knew that they needed to put some distance between themselves and the grizzly, even if it was fatally wounded. They weren't hunting bears at this time, and did everything they could do to avoid any further conflicts with them. The closest member of the hunting party was a little over a quarter mile down the ridge, and the remaining members were double that distance. Vince pulled out the satellite communications device he'd used to communicate with the others and allayed any fears with a short message, "We're fine." Vince sent a text message to his wife on their satellite communication device and relayed the details of the bear attack. The other members of the hunting party reached out to Wyoming Game and Fish officers as Vince and Garrett worked their way down the ridge. A short while later, an investigation team had arrived near the hunting party. Vince indicated he was leery to return, given he couldn't confirm that the grizzly was in fact dead. For all he knew, the bear could be holed up in ambush, waiting for retribution on the hunters. The armed agents made their way up the ridge with Vince guiding them to the last location he'd seen the bear. The jack pines the bear had entered were so thick that the agents would have to step on the bear before they could see it. After gathering statements from Garrett and Vince and examining the bear's carcass, the wildlife officers determined the shooting was justified as an act of self-defense. As for the bear, it was found to be a fully grown sow. There were no animal carcasses cached nearby, and the sow had no cubs that she was defending. Speaking of cubs, our Cub Tier membership on Patreon, linked below, will give you ad-free early access to our episodes, and the $3 per month goes a long way in helping me continue to produce educational and entertaining content like this. The elk hunters were not cited for any violations following the killing of the grizzly. Vince is still in awe of his son's actions as the grizzly bore down on him. If Garrett hadn't responded with such precision and decisiveness, the encounter may have ended much worse. Vince now carries around in the chamber of his pistol as well. Following the attack, Vince summarizes the event as God acting on behalf of the hunters. Garrett's calm and cool reactions to the bear could only be defined by him as God's will and protection for them. Wyoming hosts approximately 700 to 800 grizzly bears around the greater Yellowstone ecosystem. The Kalkowskis indicate there are more grizzlies here than ever before, and that something must be done to balance things out for the health of bear populations and the safety of hikers, hunters, and outdoor adventurers. After reviewing the details of this episode, I'm left with a few questions for you. Given the breeze was blowing toward the hunters, would bear spray have been effective in preventing this attack? If Garrett hadn't carried around in the chamber of his pistol, would the attack have turned out differently? Should the presence of grizzly tracks and prior run-ins with bears been enough to ward the hunters off from doing what they enjoyed? I will gladly read and reply to your thoughts, so post them in the comments section below, and let's talk about it. Thank you for watching Scary Bear Attacks. If you've enjoyed this episode, please consider clicking on the like button and clicking on the bell icon. We'll help you know when we post our new episodes. Posting our video links to your social media profiles furthers awareness, and it's fun. We slashed our prices in our merch store, linked below, so check out the bargains there while you shop. As a member of our human community, remember to adventure bravely and be careful out there, especially in bear country.